Good afternoon and welcome to my Capstone presentation. I'm Jasleen and this is all about red blood cells and what happens when red blood cells do not function well. There's one job that red blood cells have to do. The role of red blood cells is to bring oxygen to the different parts of the body. You first need to know what are red blood cells. Red blood cells are supposed to carry oxygen to the needed places in the body and to remove carbon dioxide from those places in the body. Next, how do red blood cells look like and what are they made of? Red blood cells look like a red disc. The red blood cells are made of hemoglobin. Hemoglobin consists of 4 protein chains, 2 alpha and 2 beta chains. There are also 1 heme group containing 1 iron atom. The iron atom helps keep the oxygen attached. Now we need to know how red blood cells are formed. The first step to becoming a mature red blood cell is hemocytoblast. The second step is the erythroblast during 2 to 5 days of development. The third step is when the erythroblast gradually fills with hemoglobin and the nucleus and mitochondria disappear. The last step is reticulocyte, which ultimately becomes a full red blood cell. What are the different types of red blood cell disorders? All red blood cell disorders come from anemia. The main types of red blood cell disorders are red blood cell membrane disorder, hemoglobinopathies, disorders of heme production, polycythemia, and hemochromatosis. These are the main ones, which means there are different types of diseases in each of those categories. For example, there are different types of anemia, like iron deficiency anemia or pernicious anemia. How do you find out that you have a disorder? Usually you will have noticed a few things on your own, anything out of the ordinary or unusual. Then usually you will go tell your doctors and tell them everything. They run some tests, and once they discover that you have a red blood cell disorder, they will run more tests to discover what type of red blood cell disorder you have. Some of these tests are a complete blood count, CBC, which measures the amount of blood, different types of cells in the blood. It checks for health problems such as anemia or possible signs of infection. A blood smear might be done with CBC. In this test, a drop of blood is placed on a glass slide and viewed under a microscope. A stain is added. This makes the parts of the red blood cell easier to see. Bone marrow aspiration and biopsy checks for problems with production of red blood cells are another type of test. With the bone marrow aspiration, a needle is inserted into a bone to collect a sample of the bone marrow fluid and cells. With a bone marrow biopsy, a needle is inserted into the bone to collect a small sample of bone marrow tissue. The test can be done separately, but they are often done together. Coagulation test checks if there are blood clots. These include prothrombin, PT test, and partial thromboplastin time, PTT test. These tests can help diagnose clotting disorders such as hemophilia. Hemoglobin electrophoresis checks for the amount and types of hemoglobin in the blood. This test can help diagnose blood disorders that involve problems with hemoglobin, such as sickle cell anemia or thalassemia. Reticulocyte count measures the amount of new red blood cells being made in the bone marrow. This test can help diagnose blood disorders that involve problems with the rate of production of red blood cells. Iron studies measure the amount of iron in the blood. These include serum iron, total iron, binding capacity, and ferritin test. Iron studies are often used to check if anemia is caused by a lack of iron. What are the symptoms of these different types of red blood cell disorders? Common red blood cell disorder symptoms are fatigue, shortness of breath, trouble concentrating from lack of oxygenated blood in the brain, muscle weakness, and a fast heartbeat. Depending on the type of disorder you have, a different type of treatment will be provided. For example, if you have cancer, you will get chemotherapy. If you have anemia, you can do blood transfusions, dietary changes, surgery, medications that stimulate the production of bone marrow and new red blood cells. What are these treatments for these different types of red blood cell disorders? The treatments are usually blood transfusions. You usually have a type of anemia, which means low amount of cells, or in this situation, red blood cells. If you have red blood cells cancer, you would go to chemotherapy. But it really just depends on the type of red blood cell disorder. Now you know what red blood cells are and what happens when they don't function properly. For more information, check out my blog, jverk27 at scarsdaleblogs.org.